Hey, welcome to Horns Up. I'm Peter. It's going to be just me on this episode. Longtime listeners know that I'm a death metal fan, and a band that I've really enjoyed in the last few years is American act Creeping Death. The band's new album, Boundless Domain, is out, and I got a chance to speak to drummer Lincoln Mullin a couple of months ago, actually. So this has been a while. But we got a chance to talk about the album. They were on tour with Carcass, Municipal Waste, and Sacred Reich back then. So we talked about the tour also and a lot more. So here's my chat with Lincoln. And I'd like to welcome to the Horns Up podcast, joined by Lincoln, who's the drummer of an upcoming band and actually one of my favorites of recent time, Creeping Death. How's it going, Lincoln?
Going swell. How are you doing?
Good. Now, we have this thing on the podcast where there's no episode that goes without a Metallica reference. I think by saying your band name itself, we're ticking that one off.
Yeah, pretty easy. Knocked it out early.
I catch you at a great time also because you're actually doing a bunch of press and you're sitting in New York. And if that's not enough, you're also in the middle of your tour. So how's it going so far?
The tour's been great. We're about almost at the 2-week mark, so we're about halfway through. All the shows have been incredible. I don't want to say worried, but like we're playing kind of earlier than like most shows would normally happen because everybody has longer sets, but everyone's been showing up early and we've been having a great reaction every night. It's been great. And every band sounds incredible. I love watching Carcass every night. Literally, it's been a very fun tour so far.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I'm really jealous that you get to watch Carcass so many times. I've had the good fortune of seeing them once a year in India when they played, and they fucking smoked. And for context to some of our listeners, we're actually, you're on tour right now with Carcass, Municipal Waste, and Sacred Reich. Sacred Reich is also someone we've had on the podcast before, so shout out to them. But the main reason why we're talking to you is actually we're in the run-up to the release of your second full-length album, Boundless Domain. How does it feel? I mean, even though it's still some time away, what's your thoughts on the lead up so far to the album?
So far everything has been really good. I'm personally really excited about it. I feel like for a lot of bands, like the second record is like, that's the one, like that's a very defining moment for a band. And I'm very excited for us to finally get ours out. Not that it's like anybody's fault necessarily, but like with a lot of things from COVID, like a lot of things are still backed up. So like it takes a long time for like vinyl to get pressed. So like we recorded the record almost a year ago now at this point, and it comes out in like 2 or 3 months. So there's been like a lot of time in between from recording and it coming out. And I'm more ready for it to be out than ever. It just can't come soon enough. It'll be very quick. It's going to go by quick, but I'm ready for it to be out. I'm ready for people to hear it. I'm really excited about it.
I actually spoke to Trey for a completely different publication a year ago, and I think we spoke in Jan. And I think at that time he said you all were already kind of working or in the middle of getting ready to record Boundless Domain. And that was exciting, just considering how prolific, for lack of a better word, you guys have been in the last 7 years, right? I mean, every other year without fail, you've kind of got something out, touring, doing a lot of stuff. Since you've kind of mentioned that it's been a year since you all recorded it, have you been playing some of the material on your current tour, and what's the response been like?
Yeah, we have been. Not right after, but the first tour after we recorded the record, we did our own headliner and we played just one new song. That song was originally going to be a single. We ended up using a different song for the single, but ever since that tour, we've been playing pretty consistently the most recent single that came out, Intestinal Rap. The reaction to it has been great. Even like before it came out, a lot of people were, had a lot of very great things to say about it. And now that it's out, people are very, like, oh, that's the song I had to check out recently. Like, it's cool that like y'all are playing it. Like for somebody that hasn't really like heard of the band or whatever, that's like the first thing they'll see on like the tour we're on now. But the response to it's been great. The other new songs that we would play, one other new song, and it was at one other show, and it's because we filmed a music video for that song. And the reaction to it at that show was incredible too. So it seems like everybody's receiving, what little bits and pieces have been heard so far really well. Just from the live setting alone, it's been really great.
This kind of brings into my next question, right? Like, do you all road test material? Like, do you all play it on tour, kind of seeing what the response is and then decide to kind of include it on the album? Or it's straight like, let's record and then we'll play it live and see how it works out?
It kind of depends on the situation. I feel like for the most part, we try to like write it and get it recorded in the studio because like, to be honest, like we'll kind of write and work on stuff and change it up until the point we go into the studio. So like, we'll have something and it's like not fully done. Like, well, let's not play it live yet. It might change a little bit, like, whatsoever. But once it's recorded and set in stone, we're kind of like, all right, let's start playing new stuff. And that's pretty much how it's always been for us. Like once it's recorded and good to go, we're pretty much ready to start playing it. We specifically, the first thing I can think of is when we recorded Edge of Existence. We recorded it in, I think, January 2021. And our first show back was in June or July. It was the first Wrecking Ball in Fort Worth, Haltom City. But Edge wasn't going to be out for another like 3 or 4 months and it hadn't been announced yet. But we played almost all the songs off of it already just because it was new. And all the circumstance was a little different then because we hadn't played a show in a very long time. We were like, we want to play some new stuff. But I mean, like, even with the record not being announced or whatever, we would still like play some songs off of it and whatever. But I feel like we don't really do it until it's like recorded and set in stone. A long time ago, we would use, I'm trying to think. I think we used the intro riff to Ripping Through Flesh as like an intro for a while, but we didn't like have the song fully fleshed out. We're like, let's just play this intro. It'll be cool. That's like the one thing I can think of where we actually didn't record it and then like play it beforehand.
Okay, that's quite an interesting approach because like at least some of the bands you'd kind of see them kind of playing some of the stuff just to kind of see the audience reaction. But
yeah,
you know what? Since you've alluded to this a couple of times already, so let's dive into the single, which is Intestinal Rap, which features George Corpsegrinder Fisher of Cannibal Corpse. I mean, like easily someone who you have on a track is going to attract a lot of attention. So Tell us how the entire thing came about and what it was like. Like, was he as one of the vocalists that you thought of having on the track? How did that entire thing come about?
I'm trying to really think. We were in the studio when the idea came up, and the guy we were recording with, Adam D, he has another band with Corpsegrinder. The idea came up, and he was like, we're under like the same management, like umbrella kind of as Cannibal Corpse. We don't have the same manager, but like it's in the same company, and it was very easy to just reach out and be like, hey, would they want to do this if it's possible? And I mean, I'm assuming they just heard the track and they said yeah, because very quickly we got an answer back. It was like, yeah, they'll do this, it's fine. We just kind of gave them the part we wanted, and like Reese had recorded it and they were like, do what you want to do, but this is where I want this part to be, essentially. And it was a very like easy, like sort of just, hey, do you want to do this? Yes, of course. And then it was done pretty quickly, honestly.
The band that you were talking about is Serpentine Dominion, and
yes,
that's a fucking killer band when you think about it, because you've got Adam D from Killswitch Engage, you've got Corpsegrinders. Like, fuck, man, that's such a great kind of combination. But before we dive in further, I think it's time that we play Intestinal Rap and just give everyone a taste of Boundless Domain. So here's Intestinal Rap.
Just
And that was Intestinal Rap. And I've got Lincoln from Creeping Death. Now, you talked about Adam D, and I'm not going to attempt saying his surname because I probably would butcher it.
I have no idea how to say it.
And I have to confess, I'm a huge Killswitch Engage fan because they were one of the initial bands that like were gateway for me, because like I got into metal in like the early 2000s or so, and like Killswitch Engage, Shadows Fall, like there was that entire God Forbid, that entire kind of sound that was there, right? Yeah. So everyone, Trivium even, like everyone was kind of exposed to those bands back then all over the place. And I've been a huge fan of just like, not just what Adam D does with Killswitch Engage, but like also his production. And that's how I know about Serpentine Dominion and even like Times of Grace. I actually love what he's done with that also. But one of the things that I've read a lot about him is he's a perfectionist. What was that like? Yeah. Tell me about that entire studio experience. I mean, like, were you guys prepped for it? And what was like the expectations versus reality? Break it down for me.
We had like 6 or 7 days to do just the drums. And I felt like I was the most prepared for that studio session that I've ever been for any studio session in my life. And he worked me like a dog. Like I was like very quickly, and I was like, oh, I was not ready for this at all. It was a great experience. It made me like, I learned a lot from it, and it made me realize a lot of things, but he is definitely a perfectionist. And it's a good thing. You can hear it on the record. It sounds, I mean, it's perfect. It's to the grid. It's great. But it's because he has the ear for it. He can hear something and be like, no, you didn't. I felt like there would be takes where I'd be like, man, I nailed that. That was perfect. And he'd be like, no, you need to redo this and this and this. And he would put it under the microscope. I'm like, how can you hear that? Like if you would not have just zoomed in like that, I would not have heard that. But like, you can really like tell in the record, like it sounds perfect. And it's like, there was one day I remember, I think I called like my dad or somebody. He was like, how was the studio work today? And I was like, I spent 6 hours on one fill. It was terrible. Like just one little section. I was just couldn't get it. Just did it over and over and over until it was right. But I mean, I ended up getting it. We ended up getting it, but it's just, yeah, he's definitely a perfectionist. And it was like that for everybody. I feel like when a lot of the guitars were happening too, they would just be like, do it again, like out of tune, out of time, fix it. Like, I mean, like I said, he worked us, but you can definitely tell, like, it sounds perfect, in my opinion. Like, everything just sounds to the grid. It's so great.
Wow, that sounds like some experience, to be honest. I mean,
he also has a great way with words, so he's not afraid to hold back and tell you how bad you played it.
Oh my God. Now, please humor me. Are there like BTS recordings, video footage or whatever of these recording sessions?
There wasn't like a ton of we didn't take a lot of studio footage or whatever. One thing that stuck with me specifically was the one fill that I had to do for like a really long time. I was exaggerating a little bit on 6 hours, but it felt like it for sure. The first time I played it, he told me it sounded like I fell down a set of stairs holding a bunch of pots and pans. I was like, okay, I'll redo it. All right. Yeah, it was pretty good. There is some little bits of footage. I think we sent them all to our label, so some of it might come out. But like, we didn't like really do a ton of footage because honestly, we were working the entire time.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things a lot of people don't realize, right? Like, studio work is like actual work. It's not just like, plug in, plug out. And I'm a huge fan, and that's why I asked you about the BTS, right? It's just like you sometimes think, just setting up the drums itself is an entire day sometimes, or even just finding the right equipment and all of that.
Yeah.
So, I have far more respect for the musicians and what they go through to the entire studio time. But since you said this and you said that you thought you were prepared, as a band, what's the kind of mindset that you'll go in before like the recording? Is there like pre-production demos and everything else done, all charted out? If you could share that would be great.
The way we personally did it, we had everything pre-production out as like best we could. I don't really have access to a studio at home, but I have a lot of like people use it. It's called like a Yamaha EAD-10, which like you can just kind of put it on the drum set and it records the whole thing. But the way we would kind of demo our songs out is I would just have them like put their amps a little closer to the drums and I would record it with that. And you could hear it really well, honestly. And I would send those to Adam and he would hear it and just be like, yeah, I can hear it. I can tell exactly what you're doing with that. It's fine. And it worked really well. I mean, for like just a cheap, easy, quick, here's a song idea and it sounds better than an iPhone voice memo. But we had everything pre-pro'd out for a while in advance. And just like, if you can pre-pro your stuff, like it's really good to hear it in like a more high quality setting before you go and actually record it, in my opinion. We had mostly everything pre-pro'd out and we're just still like working on it for, I don't really know exactly how long, probably a few weeks or months, but just getting it like, I wanted to know those songs like the back of my hand before I went to the studio, basically. And I did know the songs very well, but I just couldn't play them as solid as I thought, I guess, when I got there. Even though I still felt like I played really well, but like I said, he put me under the microscope and I was like, oh, I never realized I did that. Like, but yeah, for us personally, we just try to pre-pro it out and just work on it as long as we can beforehand. I try not to I also try to come back and revisit things kind of frequently too. Like I don't want to pre-pro a song, say it's done, and then never touch it again until we go to the studio after we write 8 more songs. Like I want to go back to it. I want to make sure we all feel very well about everything and see how it works.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the other things I realized, right, is that, when you watch the older bands, you kind of see them kind of improvising in the studio and all of that. But it's very different nowadays, right? And especially you talked about like having access to equipment that I think and technology has completely changed a lot of that. But I want to kind of dwell a bit on the writing aspect, right? Since you said you had everything. And since the last time I spoke to Trey, I realized, especially since you're saying that, you kind of have so much material written in advance in a way, do you all also then have like, I don't know, a Dropbox or a Google Drive with riffs and ideas that you'll kind of pass around? How does that kind of work for you all?
Okay, the way we kind of write the way it just works out most of the time, somebody will come to practice with a riff. Usually they'll just like voice memo it at home and like listen to it, and they'll come to practice and be like, oh yeah, I had this one, and we'll like build around one riff essentially, like this could work with this and that could work with that. And but sometimes like we'll start with one riff, we'll start writing a song, and then the first riff that it starts with will be changed completely by the time we're done actually writing the song. But usually like 9 times out of 10, that's just kind of how it works. One person will come to practice with a riff and we're all there and we'll all kind of put in our input and say what we think could work. And we'll try everything because we're all there and we can. And we'll just see what we like the best and what flows the best and what works the best.
Okay. All right. So like, if I'm understanding well, you'll actually like kind of working in the jam room together.
Yeah.
That's something that you all kind of enjoy, as opposed to just like digitally kind of uploading and sharing with each other. Because I think
Yeah,
that's one of
no.
the things that's kind of picked up also, right? With everyone kind
Yeah.
of in there. But help me understand this, and I'm going to like set some context with a quote that actually came in the press release, where it's a quote actually attributed to Trey, which says that, and I quote, "You'll hear a natural progression from Wretched Illusions to Boundless Domain. Each release will be a bit different from another, but they will all still sound like Creeping Death. That's who we are." Is that something that overall as a band you'll have the kind of vision or overall thing that each release has to kind of show some kind of thing? How do you feel now looking back at, Boundless Domain, about the entire experience when you kind of compare, if you have to compare notes?
Just comparing like Boundless to Retro or whatever, it definitely was a little bit of a different experience, but we went about it the same way. We used the same formula essentially, and we wrote the songs the same way. And it was, well, Wretched to Boundless, there was a little bit of a lineup change, but it was still the same formula and like just kind of the same way and the same attitude about going about things. I feel like with Boundless though, the only thing that really was different was when we recorded Wretched, we kind of just wrote 10 songs and recorded all 10 and put them all out. We didn't really like get to pre-pro or spend like a ton of time with them. We did pre-pro some of them, but like not all of them. And we were writing up until the point we went into the studio. Whereas with Boundless, like we kind of wrote the whole record and figured out like, or at least like in my head, like I listen to a song and I'm like, this other song we have should be the next song on the record, and like try to like figure out the order of everything. And I feel like we had a lot more time with Boundless as compared to Wretched, which I mean, I can definitely hear it in that, which we were just more prepared. But like I said, it was just the same formula going in with it as well, and like the same attitude and everything.
Having said that, right? I mean, like you did talk about this at the start, where you talked about it being your sophomore or second album, and
yeah,
as someone who's like a self-confessed metal nerd, that's one of the things you notice, right? Like it's exactly what you explained. It's that the process, what I've seen, if you kind of look at it from a macro view, is that the first album is the one where you've got that, how do I say, raw energy, everything kind of goes into that. Once that is kind of out there, then the second one is like, okay, now what do we do? How do we kind of tweak? And then by the third album, it's like, okay, this is that how you kind of see Boundless Domain?
Yeah, definitely. And by the time the third album is eventually written and done, I'm sure we'll be even more like honed into our craft, dare I say, where like it'll just be even easier to figure out and even easier to just write the songs together and figure out what we want even faster and probably even more solid, I would hope.
Having said that, I mean, an example of what you're talking about and the experimentation of the sound is, at least for me, with the couple of listens I've had of the album so far, to me, the track, which is track number 7, Remnants of the Old Gods, the intro kind of stands out. You're kind of using these kind of spaced out guitars, something kind of different. Was that like, again, a conscious choice that you all decided to make while kind of working on the tracks? Like trying something, experimenting?
In the practice room, like we will just experiment with a lot of stuff like guitar pedals and stuff like that too, to figure out kind of just like sounds that we might like or want to try. And we did with like the spacey guitar sound on that song. We went into the studio for that song, and a couple other songs have like that little bit of like that spacey effect. We definitely have grown more like towards the like, I don't want to say we've grown more towards the chorus sound, but putting little things in like that to grab people's attention it works really well to me, and I think it sounds really cool. It didn't seem like super experimental to me because we just did it and I was like, oh, that works. That's perfect. Let's do that. It was just kind of like, it just made sense and was like kind of a natural thing to do almost.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, right? I mean, if I may use the term, like to the super fan of Creeping, that they'd be like, but they don't sound like their demo, the old kind of saying, right? Or like
Classic, yeah.
The first 4 albums or nothing else, just to a band that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice and refreshing to have like something different, and especially the way you all have kind of sequenced the tracks is also, I think, kind of the way it works. Uh, Having said that, do you all read reviews of your music, and does that kind of have an impact, or have you all reached the stage where you'll just have too much to kind of go through, so you all don't bother?
I definitely read like reviews on our stuff, somewhat often, but like if someone's got like a negative review or something to say about it that they don't like that's kind of their own opinion, really, like, and they're entitled to it. It's fine. But like when it comes down to it, like I'm kind of writing. I will speak for all of Creeping Death when I say this. We are writing songs that we all want to play and that we like. And if you also like it, that's great. And if you don't like it, that's fine too. You really don't have to listen to it if you don't like it. But like at the end of the day, like we're kind of doing it for us and what we want to do. You don't have to like it if you don't, but we do, or we wouldn't put it out. So it's fair.
Okay, I mean, that's a fair attitude to kind of have.
Yeah.
So please humor me. Since you said you read the reviews, right? What's some review that you read where you think that the person just completely didn't get it? Like you were like, did they even listen to the album? Something like that audacious, I guess.
There was one, I can't even remember what site it was on, but it was like a pretty early interview that I read. And specifically, like someone said something where they were like, these guys really aren't like reinventing the wheel or anything like that. And I was like, yeah, we weren't trying to. Like, we're just trying to write death metal we like. Like, no one needs to reinvent that wheel. It's a perfectly good wheel that works.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, to be honest, right? I mean, I was having this chat the last couple of days with someone about like a band like Suffocation, right? If you think about it, just the way their evolution has been as a band, they've kind of just like spawned different generations of death metal. And like, if you go to a place like Indonesia, which is nowhere close to the east coast of the US, there's an entire kind of set of bands that are just inspired by that early Suffocation sound. So I think there's like and especially in a time like 2023, you can't really say that this is what death metal should sound like, right? Because there's so much happening in there, and especially with a band like yours, which is kind of not only focusing on just like using death metal, but also rooted in kind of like hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, now I always enjoy asking bands on tour these questions, which is what's currently playing on your tour bus?
We actually just got asked this earlier. A lot. Okay, what I've specifically been listening to a lot lately. One of my favorite bands of all time, and I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "That's not a metal band," whatever. I kind of like to chill out in the van more. I don't want to like listen to just metal all day. I listen to a lot of Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, nice.
I have,
Oh, that's quite nice. I mean, I enjoy them too.
Yeah. Lately, some newer things that have came out. I have some friends that are in this band called Narrowhead, and they just put out a record that's also kind of in that same realm. It's just like very similar, like a more chill, a more chill listen. There's another one of my friends' band, some of the same people actually. They just put out a record from this band called Scourge. That's been playing a lot lately, just because it's new. But it's really incredible. But because it's new, I want to listen to it more because I haven't heard it as much. A band I put on in the van a lot that is more heavy is Crowbar. I play that in the van like crazy lately. I don't know why I've been on this big Crowbar kick, but I just have been, and it's been in constant rotation.
Yeah. I mean, like, fuck, to be honest, I had a chat with Kirk. Holy fuck, man. I mean, like, first of all, having a chat with him and like his voice. And I think the first thing I said to him was,
legend.
Like, you sound exactly the same. And he's like, what do you mean? Of course I sound like this. And I was like, fuck.
That's so funny, actually.
But like, is Crowbar something that everyone else in the band? Because I think that's one of the things also I've learned more about touring, right? Is that it's literally like you're in a short-term relationship, or being in a band is like in a long-term relationship with like multiple people, right? How do you kind of get along in there? And if it's not music, the next thing is food. So what's one thing you're sick of eating on tour already?
I will still eat it because it is there every day and I do love it, but I am getting tired of it. On our rider, I put just peanut butter and jelly and bread so I can make a quick sandwich if I need to. But good Lord, I'm sick of them. It's so good, but I'm just like, I want something else now.
But I mean, like, so I was having a chat with this Canadian band, and I told them what's one food they look forward to on tour. And you'll realize why I'm telling you this in a second. It's because they said tacos. So what do you, is that something that you look out for? Because like I never would have imagined like a Canadian band looks forward to eating tacos while on tour. So for someone from Texas, what do you guys kind of look forward to eating on tour other than peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
This is kind of ironic, but I'm looking forward to going to Canada and eating poutine.
What?
It's so funny that it's the total opposite spectrum like that. You can't really get it where I'm from, though, and I'm sure they can't really get good like tacos and other Mexican food where they're from, so I guess that makes sense. But every time I go to Canada, I'm like, I always look forward to getting poutine in Canada, which if you're watching this, you don't know what poutine is. It's basically just French fries, brown gravy, and cheese curds on top of it. And it's so good. But surprisingly, nowhere really has that outside of Canada. Or it's not very easily accessible, at least, which is weird because those aren't like crazy ingredients or anything. But also going into Canada, they have a lot of really good, like they have the same candy and sodas they do in America, but it's just different in Canada. Like in America, every soda company uses like high fructose corn syrup. And in Canada, they all use like actual real sugar and everything else. And it tastes a lot better. So every time we go there, I always like stock up on a bunch of snacks and drinks just because it's just way better than what we have at home, even though it's the same stuff.
So I do know about poutine because I did live in Canada for a bit. And
really?
I'm sure if you tell someone that you like poutine, they'll be like, you know, the best is in Montreal or Quebec, not the rest of Canada, you know, that whole thing in there. But yeah, I mean, I totally get why you kind of want poutine. I mean, especially I think it's going back to what you said earlier. It's just the fact that you don't get it and you only can have it on tour. So why not?
Yeah.
But since we're talking touring, I'm pretty sure knowing Creeping Death, you guys are not done with touring for the year. So is there more tours on the cards? What can you talk about or share with us, at least at the moment?
We are doing a headline tour through the States in the summer. I think it's getting announced next week from now. So by the time this comes out, it'll probably already be announced. And then we do have, we have another tour lined up in the fall that I can't really talk about. But I think that's it for right now, honestly. We do have a lot of touring throughout the year, and I'm sure other stuff will end up coming up too. And we'll probably, if it works, we'll probably accept it. But we do have a lot of touring planned for the rest of the year already. And it's already kind of starting to get into next year too. But nothing's like super confirmed. It's just kind of talked about for next year. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And all I say is, you know, I hope you hit Canada so you don't get poutine only just this time of the year. You get like further down, because I think that you can't get enough of poutine. Let's put it that way.
Oh, you can't. You say that like though, like you're like the best is in like Montreal or whatever. Even like comparatively, like for someone who never has it, even the stuff in like a McDonald's poutine in like anywhere, I'm like, even that stuff's really good. Like at least to me, like I just can't get it. So I'll have that. And I'm like, oh, this is incredible.
But before I wrap up, I mean, I have to at least ask you this question, and I think it should be expected by now. Looking at your past track record, I'm pretty sure the way you've always kind of gone is EP album. So are we expecting an EP already? Have you guys started writing it? Or this time you're going to be like, fuck it, we're doing album, no more EP?
We haven't really talked about it yet. We haven't really started writing anything either, because ever since the record came out, like we've kind of been touring heavily. And when we're home, like we've kind of been enjoying our downtime lately. I don't really know right now, actually. Like I said, we just haven't talked about it. I personally, and I don't know, nothing's confirmed or whatever. I personally, what I would rather do is just go straight to another full length. Just kind of depending. I feel like the EP thing kind of happened because of, well, okay, for a lot of bands, track records, like a good example would be like Slayer or somebody else. Like after you put out your first record, you put out an EP that kind of leads into the next record a lot better. And with Edge, it was all written in the same like writing sessions kind of. So it will sound, it's a very good bridge to gap between the first and the second LP. And also like, I feel like COVID had a little bit to do with it because we didn't want to put out an LP in COVID, even though we weren't going to record it, but we had most of it ready. And we were kind of like, let's just sit and wait and see what the world's going to do first. And that was kind of just the timing on that. I feel like personally, we'll probably end up just doing an LP next though. But like I said, nothing confirmed. We haven't even started talking about that yet. Kind of want to put out the record first and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, I know it's a little preempt because there was still some time away for the album, but I definitely had to throw it in because I was looking at your discography and I'm like, wait, I see a pattern here. So
yeah. I actually noticed that the other day too.
But yeah, you know what? Honestly, I can go on and on, and I think the next time we talk, I should get at least more than one band member from Creeping Death to actually talk Metallica, because I think after Metallica, it's Iron Maiden, and we've done like so many episodes on both bands, so we should definitely do that. I mean, like, I think that would be great, like breaking down a Metallica album with members of Creeping Death. So
Yeah,
I'm setting this out, whether you believe in manifestation, setting it out in the universe or whatever. I'm putting it out there. Let's do it, right?
Let's do it. That'd be great.
All right. So before I let you go, I mean, this is the spot where we usually leave for bands to kind of plug in, give shout outs. How do bands kind of, how do listeners kind of reach out to you all, get your merch, get the latest album? Boundless Domain fucking sounds great. From what I've heard so far, I think it's definitely going to be on my playlist for a while. So yeah,
Thank you.
It's all over to you.
All right, I'm just gonna kind of plug everybody in Creeping Death that has other stuff going on right now. AJ's other band, it's called Combat with a K. Just classic. They call it greasy death metal, but it's just really great classic, like kind of bolt throwery worship. Reese and AJ both just started another band that's not metal at all. It's they're kind of trying to go for like this band called Sebado, which is like a Dinosaur Jr. side project. It's called Sacred Attention. Trey started another band recently that they actually play drums in. It's a really good hardcore band. It's called Deep Cover. And I played another band now as well called Fugitive. That's pretty much just like every one of those bands has put out something new very recently. And we'll probably continue to keep putting other stuff out too as well. Friends bands, as far as those go, I said it earlier, but my friends in Scourge just put out a new LP that's really incredible. If you like death metal or hardcore adjacent death metal or whatever, I wouldn't really say it's hardcore adjacent, but it has the hardcore attitude for sure. That record's incredible as well. And as far as the Boundless Domain album pre-orders go, you can get it. Just go to any of our socials. There's a link to get it somewhere. You have so many options. There's so many places to get the record now. It's insane. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. So if you like the singles that we played, definitely go check out Boundless Domain. And yeah, that's all for this episode for now. So thanks so much, Lincoln, for answering all my questions. And I hope you enjoyed doing this interview.
Yeah, I did. It was great. Thanks for the chat. It was fun.
And that was Lincoln Mullins of Creeping Death. If you enjoyed that chat and also the single, do check out their album, Boundless Domain. That's out now via Monarchy Heavy. And yeah, it's been a while since you heard from us on the Horns Up podcast. Let us know what kind of episodes you're looking forward to. If you're a band tuned in, why don't you get in touch with us at Horns Up Pod on Twitter. You can get in touch with Animesh on Twitter at Asmodani. or me at Trendcrusher. We've got a lot more episodes coming up soon, so definitely stay tuned and follow us. And I'll see you all very soon. Horns up, everyone.